Introduction to Easy Booking Bookkeeping. Hi, my name is Mark. I will be explaining how to use this bookkeeping system to you. And the first thing that I want to do is go over some of the tabs you're going to see. This whole project was done in Excel. It's a fairly simple system. It's good for smaller businesses, and I think you'll find it to be very easy to use. The first thing I want to mention to you is to go to the Explaining the System tab, and please read this because it's very important. It's also very important that you watch all of the training videos that I've done before you do anything in the system. You could run into problems if you don't follow the instructions. So please read the Explaining the System tab and then go through the video training links. And then if you have a question about something, the links are set up so that it covers specific topics and you don't have to go through and view the entire training videos again. So the first thing, as I said, I want you to see the introduction, the tabs that we have. We have the Explaining the System tab, the Video Training tab, which you're already familiar with. So the next tab, I'm calling it Company Setup, but really what it is just giving your company name, address, company bank for your own information. Then we have the months. You'll see that it's set up now for a fiscal year running from January to December, and each month name is equivalent to the month you see to the right. So you have the month number 1 is January, month number 2 is February, and so on. Now, let's say your fiscal year starts in July. Okay, so all you have to do is go back and delete January, put July, August, and you can actually take these two together. There's a little dot in the right, drag it down, and it will automatically change your months to July, August, September, October, right through June. So you would start on month 1, which would be July, your opening month. I'm gonna go back to making this January. So you start with your opening month. Now let's say you're in the middle of the year. Well, you could start and say, well, I'm going to go to May and make that the first month I have an entry in. As long as your month 12 is the end of your fiscal year, you're fine, because numbers from each month from balance sheet numbers will carry over into the following month, and they stop in December. So in other words, December won't carry over into January because that's your end of the fiscal year. So if your ending fiscal year is June, you should set this up that says July, August, September, October, so that June is where December now is, and that will end your fiscal year, and you won't have to worry about month end balance sheet information not carrying over. Okay, so now you've got your video training links, Explaining the System, company setup, and then our next stop will be the chart of accounts. And again, guys, only put information in where you see yellow. This is the only areas that you can change. one thing I want to mention to you is that this version has macros. All right, prior versions, if you happen to have one, did not have macros. So if you bring this up and it asks you to enable macros, just yes, you want to enable macros. I don't think you'll have a problem with this, but if it happens to pop up, you enable the macros. So you will have basically what this macro does, it added another account into the system for you. Here in the chart of accounts, any of these accounts, I just set up these accounts with an assumption that some of them you guys are going to be using, okay? So you'll see that it starts with the assets, liabilities. We have one owner equity account. Then we get into the income and expenses. You can change all of these except for the cash. You should always have the cash account. You're doing this on a cash basis. And owner equity, you cannot change the owner equity account. But all these other in yellow, you can. If you don't have any advertising, you can change that account name to something else. If you don't need the account, leave it alone, okay? But also, if you start entering something in one of these accounts and you go back midstream, like in the middle of the year, and decide you want a different name for it, you're going to lose data, the amounts that you put in there when it was the old account name. So don't do that. If you have an account that remains, let's say you start in January and you're into May, and you have an account that just you never made an entry, let's say loan payable, and you can use a different liability account, you need another account, you can change it then because you're not going to lose any information. But if you already have something in there, then you don't want to change it. You have to decide on your account names really at the beginning of the year, knowing which accounts you're going to have. So that's what you have to do with your chart of accounts. And again, you're always going to see throughout here in yellow. If something's in yellow, you'll be able to change that particular account or that particular piece of information, other than when I'm trying to explain things to you here, like at the top. All right, so let's move on to the next tab. So the next section I want to show you is called equity split. The next tab is equity split. Now, if you got a copy of this where you don't see it after chart of accounts, what you're going to have to do is do a down here under chart of accounts, do a right click, and there's unhide. You'll click the unhide, and you'll see equity split right at the top of all the hidden tabs. Then just click equity split and it'll show up. So here's equity split. I have this set up really for just 2 partners. If you have more than 2 partners and you know something about Excel, you can add another partner, or what I call here member, if an LLC has members. So I set this up as a multi-member LLC with 2 members. It could get really cumbersome if you keep adding more members. So you also have to realize that the equity account in your financial statements is just an equity account. So that would have the total equity between all members. If you want to keep track of separate members, in this case 2, you would need to physically go to the equity split section and make entries every time there's a change in the equity balances of the members. You'd have to make a change here. You'd have that would calculate total entry and then equity total, and you can make comments. But this total equity in column G should equal whatever you have in your equity account on the financial statements. Okay, so if it doesn't, it means you added an entry too much, or you deleted, or you forgot to make an entry. So it gets a little cumbersome. You could set up your own worksheet if you want to keep track of each member's equity. I just put this in here. You don't have to use it, and if you have only one person, you don't need to use it at all. So that's just a little something that's there. I initially hid that particular tab, and like I said, the copy you got, it may be hidden. If you don't need it, don't open it up. So once we get through that equity split conversation, the next tab you have is financial statements. So this tab takes you from your first month, in this case it's January, right through the 12th month, which would be December here. And then at the end, column N, after December, you have information on year to date. So at a particular point in time, you'd have a balance sheet, and then for the year to date, you have it below that right here, you have an income statement. So this will carry over. So let's say you're only in month 8, August. The balance sheet from that month that exists during August will show up here at your year to date or your balance year end. And then the same with the income statement, it would show up here. It'll have an accumulation of January through August, and then that would show up here at the back end where it has year to date, okay? And for the year ended in the income statement. So that follows through as each month is done, or even in progress, you'll have totals here at the back end year to date and for the year to date. So that's your financial statement. You don't touch any of this. It automatically populates each account as you have made entries. The next column is just a vendor list. You can add vendors and customers here in the yellow. You have now, as you do this, it's a convenience thing, because when you get to your monthly statements, now this is the month 1 cash journal, you have a drop down box that would, if you had any entries, if you made any entries in your customer vendor list, they would show up here. So all you'd have to do is either start typing someone in, and if it's there, it'll pop up and you can click it, or you can just open it up and scroll down to click the vendor you want. If it's not there, no big deal. You can enter one here. You can either add them to your customer vendor list or not. If you only use them once, you don't necessarily have to. So that is a drop-down box that will automatically populate as you go to your entries every month. Now the month 1, as I said earlier, this is a cash journal. So it's cash in, cash out. You'll see here under column D, you have cash out, column E, cash in. So that's all cash. What I did, you'll only see here the cash entries. This is, you're generally just dealing with cash financials here. But if you have entries that are not cash, or that are become more convenient to do certain types of entries, I also provided a general journal. All right, so If you click month 1, you go to unhide, you'll see GJ month 1. That's your general journal. You'll also see other stuff, like up above that is financial summary. You can open that if you want. It just gives you the charts and graphs that you might want to look at that go through the quarter and the year to date. In fact, you know what? Let me open that. And then we'll come back to this. So here is the financial summary. It'll give you your balance sheet, year-to-date income statement, which you will also find under your financial statements. And then it gives you operating results by quarter and operating results year-to-date. So that's for people who really like to see it on graphs and charts. To me, it was never any big deal. And it also gives you the dollar amounts that you need to look at that make up the charts and the graphs. Okay, so getting back to month 1, if we unhide General Journal month 1, you will see here you still have your vendor drop down box, right? So you still have ability to get your vendors from your vendor list. Now you have some real accounting here, debits and credits. Okay, so if you know something about debits and credits, you could do non-cash items here. Let's say you deal with depreciation, and either you do it monthly, quarterly, the end of the year. You have general journals for every month in this system. All right, general journal entries can be made every month. So one thing you could do is, if you've got depreciation, you may have your account in your drop down box. This is another thing that has a drop down box. You can only make an entry to an account that has an account name off of your chart of accounts. So like in this example, if we go to our expenses, we do have a situation where we have depreciation expense there. And then if you also go to your assets, you have after equipment, you have accumulated depreciation. So if I was to make an entry here, I could have a debit for depreciation expense, a credit for accumulated depreciation. Neither one of these is cash. So in order to make it, you need a general journal, and here it is. The other thing I think is pretty neat you could do here, you can make an entry to cash. Let's say you have a credit card, you spent $1,000, and some of it was for small tools, some of it was paying rent, some of it was a variety of things. You could do that all in one entry here. You could have a bunch of debits and then one credit to cash. You can't do that in the cash journal. In the cash journal, each entry is one expense and then the cash equivalent, one income, the cash equivalent. So this allows you to make multiple account entries in either debits or credits. Okay, so that is our general journal. Aside from that, I'm going to do a right click to show you what else is here. Unhide. We have a bank reconciliation tab in each month. If you may like to use it, the one that's on your bank statement, that's fine. You could do it here. The bank reconciliations here are more detailed than a lot of the ones you're going to find on your bank statement when you get it. So all of those, you've got every month, you got your cash journal, which is the month 1, month 2, month 3. You got your general journal, which is labeled GJ month 1, GJ month 2, GJ month 3. And you have the other tabs that I showed you earlier, your company setup, chart of accounts, financial statements, financial summaries. Then, okay, if we go all the way to the end, now this is your bank reconciliation. It's kind of self-explanatory if you read everything. I'm not going to go over that with you. What I do want to show you, though, is at the end you have year-end adjustments. So what happens in this tab, all of your numbers will be brought forward and show up here under each of the accounts. We have adjustments you can make. So if you're doing your own year-end adjustments and you realize there's something here that you needed to change, you would make your adjustments here. Maybe you didn't put in depreciation, but you should have, or you want to through the adjusted trial balance. You could do it here. If you have an accountant that's doing your books for you, or someone who's doing your tax return for you, they can actually add, if they know something about Excel, and they can actually add accounts here and then do debits and credits and bring them over and do their adjusted totals down below, so that they have accounts that actually show up in the IRS forms. It's a lot more flexible here, so that they could actually put everything into a format that coincides with their IRS forms that they're using. Okay, don't need to do it for everything here, but you don't want to mess up your financials, because if you take it out of one of these accounts and put it here, right, it should not show up in your financials. You'll be okay, but you don't want to go back and use this. Hey, I don't have anything under computers here, but it's on my financials. Well, then maybe somebody made an adjustment, pulled it out, put it into another account. So that is basically what you're seeing as the introduction to the system. I am going to now get into the details of what we do with this system.